The goal of Canada's health charities is simple and straightforward: a healthier Canada. That's why every day we're supporting the 87% of Canadians who are likely to be affected by chronic disease or major illness in their lifetime. We are Health Partners, a collaboration of 16 of Canada's most trusted and respected health charities, representing some of the most devastating chronic diseases and serious illnesses faced by Canadians. Since 1988, our campaigns have raised over $170 million for life-saving research, services, and programs. We couldn't have done it without the generous support of public servants like you. For that, we say thank you.
Good morning. My name is Brian Campkin, and I'm here on behalf of Health Partners and the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Canada. According to Health Partners, as many as 87% of Canadians will likely be affected by one or more chronic diseases or major illnesses during their lifetime. And the Heart and Stroke Foundation says that every 5 minutes, somewhere in Canada, someone dies from heart and stroke disease. So that means that during my speech today, we will have lost another Canadian to this dreadful disease. And in fact, I was one clogged artery away from joining that club myself. But I was able to avoid that by a life-saving triple bypass surgery. That's why when you support Health Partners and Heart and Stroke Foundation, you support survivors like me. In fact, I would say you create survivors like me. Today, I want to share my story and journey with heart disease with you. It's a story I call From Survivor to Thriver. It was January 2007, and I was off to my weekly tennis match. And I was pretty excited this week. You see, I was playing my nemesis, Mark, who I'd never beaten. Got off to a good start and an early lead, and things were going well. But partway through the match, when we were changing ends, I noticed I was having difficulty breathing. I didn't think much of it and continued to play. Shortly thereafter, we were taking a break, and I was down on one knee. I remember looking up at the roof of the tennis dome, thinking to myself, I wonder what a heart attack feels like. But I quickly dismissed that notion. You see, I was in the best health of my life, or so I thought. Eventually, I had to forfeit the match and went home and complained to my wife how disappointed I was, and she quickly dismissed that and really honed in on my health. And like any good wife, she suggested a trip to the family doctor. And like a good husband, I thanked her, but I declined. But thankfully, she was persistent. She finally said, Brian, if I make the appointment, will you at least go? And I said, sure. Life-saving decision. You see, after 5 weeks of tests and an angiogram, it was determined that of my 4 main arteries, 3 were clogged at 100, 99, and 86%. I was out on that tennis court barely firing on one cylinder. And I know I'm alive today for 2 reasons. 1, I listened to my body. Something just wasn't right. And 2, for all you guys out there, I listened to my wife. Life-saving decision. And after that landed me on the most difficult part of my journey, which was the waiting game. See, it was 5 weeks of tests, but it was 6 weeks of waiting around before I went under the knife. And I remember, my wife and children's lives all went back to normal. They went to work, went to school, and I was left at home alone, walking around with a nitroglycerin spray that I was supposed to spray on my tongue if I had a heart attack coming on. I didn't know what a heart attack felt like. My illness was shortness of breath. So anyways, from there, my family doctor called me one day, and I joked around with him. I said, I didn't think doctors made house calls anymore. And sure enough, he laughed, but then he got serious, and he really wanted to know how I was doing. And I told him about my anxiety. And this will sound simple, but he just said, Bri, listen to your body. If something isn't right, get to the hospital. And that got me through those remaining weeks, which was great. Finally, the big day arrived, and it was my surgery date, the big event, as I like to call it. And let me tell you, it's no fun being cracked open like a lobster and having a surgeon take your heart, put it in his hand, and save your life while you're on a bypass machine. But I can tell you this, thankfully, you sleep through that part. And I remember my wife sharing a story with me. You see, I have to say that this was an alleged story because I was still out of it in the ICU when this period went on. And my wife was waiting for me to come around, and the nurse said, Mrs. Campkin, it's dinner hour. Why don't you head home and feed your daughters and give me a call after dinner, and I'll let you know how Brian's doing. He'll probably be alert by then. Lori jumped at the opportunity and went home, and sure enough, she phoned the nurse after dinner, and the nurse sounded a little apprehensive, which alarmed Lori, and she asked the nurse if everything was all right. And she said, well, Mrs. Campkin, you tell us, because as Brian was coming out of the anesthetic, he kept trying to order a pina colada. Is that normal for him? Well, sure enough, Lori said to herself, looks like he's going to be okay. And we moved on to the next role of my journey, which was Recovery Road. I went from the ICU to the recovery floor. And I remember setting a small goal, or what seemed like a small goal for myself, with the nurse on the floor. And I told her I wasn't going to use the call button to have her come and get me in and out of bed when I needed to move around. And she said, Mr. Campkin, I tell you what, when I bring your lunch tray, let's check in and see how you did this morning and see if you made some walks and trips to the patient's lounge. And true to her word, she came in at noon, set down the tray, and asked how I did. And I explained how I made 2 or 3 trips to the lounge, but they really didn't like the Price is Right. And there was a gentleman in there with the converter that just wouldn't let go. So I went to the other side of the recovery floor where there's a library and spent some time going through some books. She just smiled and said, Mr. Camping, you don't need to use that call button. And I was like, yes, goal number 1 is achieved. And then from there, I set a lot of goals for myself, and I actually left the hospital a couple of days later. They gave me a walking curriculum, and I had to do 30 walks in 30 days. And I remember that first day going out the front door of my house, down the end of the driveway, 5 houses down, and back again. That took me 5 minutes. Today, it would take me 30 seconds. I didn't let that discourage me. You see, on the second walk that I did that morning, I just went 1 crack in the sidewalk further. And then on the next walk, another crack and another, until those cracks in the sidewalk led to the next lamppost, the next street corner, and finally the next block. And after 30 days, I was walking 2 kilometers in 30 minutes. And then from there, I set a lot of goals and milestones for myself, and not just exercise. I lost 20 pounds. I had some lifestyle changes. I practiced moderation and portion control. My breakfast no longer consisted of a takeout coffee and toothpaste. And I followed the Canada Food Guide that I got from the Heart and Stroke Foundation. But it was at my cardiac rehab sessions that I got real serious. It was a 6-month program that I started in August, 3 months after my surgery. And I remember my therapist saying to me, did I have any goals, any big goals? And I said, yeah, I got 3 of them. 1, I'm the captain of a charity walking team, and we do a 60-kilometer walk every second weekend of September, and I want to be part of my team this year. 2, I want to get back to competitive tennis. And 3, I have 3 teenage daughters I want to walk down the aisle on their wedding day. She said, great, Brian, let's go in reverse order. How old are your daughters? I said, 19, 16, and 13. Any weddings in their future? I said, geez, I hope not. She said, let's park that goal. And when's this competitive tennis? This is August. When does it start? I said, not till January. She said, okay, let's park that goal. When's this charity walk, 60 kilometers through the streets of Toronto? I said, 6 weeks. She said, we got us a goal. I followed her curriculum, and I'm proud to say 4.5 months after my surgery, I did that 60K walk. 9 months after my surgery on New Year's Day, I ran a 5K. And 2 weeks later, I was back on the tennis court. But as I said, my biggest goal was walking my daughters down the aisle. Those ones took a little time. And it wasn't until November 2011 that I walked my first daughter down the aisle on her wedding day. Fast forward to July 2018, I walked daughter number 2 down the aisle. That left me 1 daughter left to go, and she was booked for her wedding for this year, September 26th, 2020. But COVID-19 got in the way, so that goal is going to have to be delayed. It's now October 2nd, 2021. Let me leave you with some closing thoughts. First, from Margaret Mead, noted philanthropist, who said this: never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that has. And since 1988, Health Partners has raised over $178 million, saving and improving the lives of millions of Canadians. And they help to create survivors like me who get to achieve their life goals, like walking their daughters down the aisle on their wedding day. With that, I say simply, thank you.